See, I figured it's not a good idea to bet against their one Slayer Wizard, because out of all of them, I figured if any of the Ace members was going to get a win, it had to be Cobra, just because even though out of the six of them, they're all capable. It's not like any of the Sace members in Merity are random wizards. They were all handpicked by Brain, like as children. So it's not like any of them don't have clear special qualities to their magic and as wizards. But the only two of them that, well, I'd say Meridian kind of like as her own like side thing, but out of them, the ones that are the most notable are Midnight and Cobra. And out of those two, the one to say most off is Cobra, because Midnight has more of that specific character potential quality of like, oh, maybe he's like a genius super person, because he was the one that was hyped up out of the Sace initially, from each of the children taken from the tower. But Cobra as a dragon slayer, he's always got just the fact that as a slayer wizard, he has like broken dragon aspects to his magic, because like we know that demons can eat poisons and poison based abilities, but dragon attribute magics and abilities are completely different from any of the other ones, because one, they are wizards, but they are using magic to achieve a power that is not from magic, because dragons have their own thing. So it's two different things at the same time, and on top of that, it is a higher variant of what you would really expect, because I think it would make sense if demons could eat relatively all poisons baseline, but dragon poison would just be completely difficult, because at that point, why would you ever pick Poison Dragon Slayer over relatively anything as a demon? Because if demons can just fully counter poison altogether, then it would be a Dragon Slayer in this specific type. But I think it makes sense for Dragon Poison to be a cut above what a demon would normally be able to handle. So in the chapter one, I figured that we were going to see if if Cobra could get this win, but what does it mean for the Athereous? And this is something that I've talked about relatively the whole time that we've gotten these new Athereous, because an aspect of them you have to remember, and I made sure to bring this up for the video, because this is my favorite one. We'll talk about when I get there. This is my favorite little sequence from the chapter, but because of the whole existence of the Sace, it's like understanding out the Sace of the Oracion sex, it's like they are, other than Zero, they are created, they're expendable. And so any of them can just die and be replaced either with you could just, a new Athereous, completely unlike the previous one. You could have one that is similar but upgraded. Example of how Ziggy in the Dark Stars were, is he would just get essentially, next upgraded version 2, version 3, version 4. It just goes down a line of every time they're modified and upgraded. Same thing obviously with the idea of the Athereous. Or it could just be Blade revived, and maybe Blade is stronger and has new abilities and whatnot. But pretty much once we the fight starts and gets open, Cobra is just exuding poison. He's just completely radiating it all around him. He's like in just clear all in mode, and he brings up the fact that this is dragon poison. It's gonna corrode everything that it touches, and he just starts flailing it, spamming it all over the battlefield, to where Blade is cutting it and doing everything he can to slice through it, because he mentions like, I can cut, it's not an issue. And this was something that I thought too. It's like, okay, if he can cut magic, and he just seems to have this like crazy cutting ability, especially this far in when we already have characters that can cut ethereal and elemental based abilities and whatnot, magic itself, all these different things, it makes sense to me that he'd be able to do it. But because of the effects of doing so in the first place, that poison gets stuck to his sword, which I really like, because that is, Cobra didn't get anything like a new technique in this chapter, but he got new ways that his power operates, because I don't think we've had anything like this in specific, where his poison will latch onto inanimate objects and then corrode them as they're as it's going on, because we know it's done it to people, but I don't think that he's done it to, like, at least to my knowledge, based off the top of my head, where he's like got it made sure to selectively go about it. Because it's not like, because one thing is, you look at it, he's not like corroding much of the tree that like the Alderon base they're on. He's not like corroding specifically going after Blade with this attack. My guess is he, after getting this all like completely cloaked on himself, he wanted to go after the sword entirely, and that's why it's selectively set onto the sword. But Blade as well is like, well, it's still a functional sword, and I can, you know, with my code name being Blade, I can cut even if this is damaged, and goes just for a piercing attack. And that's where we get this bit where Cobra is I think Cobra just really planned for it to just, if we're gonna take care of the edge and just get him to that point where he only has like a piercing attack, you know, grab onto the blade and then just further just explode poison all around him. And he goes for it's Poison Dragon's Jaw. I think actually this is new because I think it's Twin Fang. I'd have to double check on all his attack names, because he's got a couple of like anime only abilities, but I mean, like, he's just going for essentially this just all in AoE, everything around him, poison, just hit him. And it's funny is like, he's like, you know, he's not like Natsu, he'll kill his opponents, sort of. Natsu will kill specific opponents as long as he, you know, knows that they're horrible people and there's no real reason to keep them alive. Cobra just feels like, nah, you're my enemy, see you later. And we know that from Gajil's spinoff and Road Knight, that Cobra still has that side where it's like, if he sees like, if he's fighting another criminal, he doesn't care at all, and he'll just go into you know, into how he was before, and he'll just full dark if he has to murder a you know, another evil person, because he doesn't care at that point. It's like, well, I don't have any sympathy or goodness for people like this, so whatever. But that's where this bit came in afterwards, where there's a really interesting line from Blade where he says, to them, death is merely returning to Ferris. And this is really intriguing to me, because it tells me, it's like, okay, well, are they going to be doing something like a Yuha box scenario where, like, whenever, maybe hers is different because because with Zeref, like, they're using curses, and Zeref has, you know, he's got a curse, but Zeref's whole thing was like, he had obviously regular magics, but also black magics primarily was his main thing. And I'm wondering if Ferris, though, with her Athereous, maybe she has to like give one of her black magics in order to create one of her Athereous. But like, well, all doing so, once they're destroyed, it comes back to them and they're more power, like she gets it as a higher state, more powerful from the process of it. Because there was this bit in the chapter, and this was my favorite general panel set of the chapter, just because this is like right around what I was hoping for if we were going to get any of the Athereous in these fights defeated, because again, they're expendable. You have to keep on, other than Zero, they are expendable. And there's, again, I'll talk about it once I get to the end of the chapter, but I feel like just, I don't really see how Midnight is gonna beat Zero, and it's like Zero losing, it's gonna be really weird if he was brought back just that. Again, I'll talk about that in a second. But Blade turning back into a book, and then just kind of decaying away, because again, this tells me that the whole fact that they are books, they are creations, is going to be a very key component within their whole dynamic in this arc and how they're going to go. Because again, the thing about when it comes to like adding new characters that are relevant as the story goes on, you have to be able to logically explain why like a boss character is as powerful as they are. Like, why is, you know, obviously with like the dragon gods each where they're at, makes sense. Ferris has all these bits of like black magic and steps that we don't know in detail, but we know she has Acnologia's arm, and it's like siphoning off of that is automatically going to put her much more powerful than a regular person. And on top of that, I think with seeing at least to a degree of what the Ellen tier Ferris was capable of, that it shows that Ferris as a wizard is very capable, and like she just as a you know, a person, even if in different universes, she has a very high level of skill and capability. It just depends. And when it comes to her with all this black magic, it's like, okay, well, she's got all these ways of she's like augmenting and boosting herself. And so like when after that point, it's like, okay, well, what about their minions? With Fire and Flames, you have all these clearly capable people, but they're all dragon buffed, and then like that's why they're able to get to this the point where they're at now. And for Ferris, Zero is different because Zero was already pre-existing, then made into a demon, but the others are Athereous. She can just spawn them. She can just create them. And I think it'd be really cool if we could see her create one like on the spot, because there's value to that also for the verse, because we never saw Zeref do it, but we know Zeref could. It's just like he just never had a purpose to use this ability, or really why he would want to create more Athereous when his Athereous were for suicide, whereas Ferris's are more for conquest. And I'm very curious as to where it's going to go specifically for this aspect of the plot, because she herself, again, she talks about how like they all are ultimate black wizards touched by the abyss of black magic. Like, what is that going to ultimately mean? And again, it's like if Blade, one that she just made, and it's enough to push Cobra to like his full extent, that's still really impressive. It would just depend on like how many Aetherius does she have? How, like, here's the thing, if we get to a part where Ferris is only like, I can only have 5 Aetherius active at once, or maybe active ones, I can only have 5 created at once. I think that would be kind of like where she'd be like, okay, she's not a huge threat. But if we get to a part where she goes back to her base and we see that she has like a wall of books, and she's got like hundreds of Aetherius prepped and ready, and then like if she's like, I can only have 5 active at once or something, or at the moment I can only have 5, or maybe she boosts herself and she's able to have more, but you know what I mean, where it's like, it's a difference if she only has 5 versus she can only have active 5 but she has more, or if she just has a ton more. Because again, if she goes back and she's got a wall of Aetherius, that's going to be a really impressive just threat for her character, especially if one of them was able to push Cobra to this extent. So we'll see as this whole bit goes. I'm very, very, very invested in the Athereous side of things, because this is something that I wish we saw Xerath do from a world standpoint. Again, we didn't have a point where it made sense for him to be, yeah, let me just start spawning Athereous, because I've mentioned the only way that you really could have done a lot more with the fight for him versus Natsu is just thrown more things in there. Maybe like moved it to another location kind of style fight. But for the most part, it's like really just Xerath exposition, because the writing and everything between their characters was all on point. It just wasn't as like a let's just do stuff for the sake of the fight kind of thing. And that could be what Ferris could do, because everything that Ferris does for black magic and the Aetherius, we know that Xerath has. So it's like you can already just assume that he has these abilities that she's going to utilize, unless she's like, oh, this is something I created or something that's new within black magic that Xerath wasn't around for. But I'll give props as well to Racer for, like, Racer is fighting the member of the sex that I figured would be the weakest and would be the least impressive. His bird just seems a little silly. His design is cool, but his design isn't nearly as like alluring as the other members. And on top of that, like, his magic is just black sky magic, and as far as we've been shown, it just seems to blind you and you can't see him while he's flying or something. But he's talking shit to Racer, and again, I like how both of them are. I like how both of them are doing more than I gave them credit for. Like, both Racer and Bird are doing better than I initially figured they were going to do. And Bird is talking shit. He's talking about how like they took down 3 of the SACE members. I'm a little worried about like a comeback for them, just because the gate, like from Gate, is still up. But Gate is the one out of all of the artificial SACE member, or sex members rather, that I just feel like he's the sleeper, like, dangerous guy. Whereas the rest of them, like, I could see the rest of them being defeated, and it's not really that crazy of a problem. And he's just like going back and forth. There's a really good moment between all of the SACE members and Merity when she's talking about how Zero's magic was detected over on the northern continent, which I think is, one, it's impressive that she's able to do this. Like, she just links them from anywhere, and she's like talking about how she's detected his magic. But it doesn't look like she has any devices or she's anywhere. It just seems like she just senses them. Again, this is one of those things where Merity herself is clearly impressive, and I think out of all of them, she's probably the only one that would have been training or doing any form of like, process of getting stronger over the last year. Whereas like the rest of the, like, all the SACE members, I think it makes sense that like maybe some training, some stuff going on with their powers just casually, but I would imagine most of them are just, enjoying life. Because we do see in the chapter that Hadai and Racer were together, so it's clear that they weren't just like, oh, I'm just gonna go live out, like, be alone. Like, Angel is in a guild, like, with she's in Sabretooth with Yukino, so it's like, again, there are reasons why they could do stuff, but I figure they would be, for the most part, out just kind of, again, chilling, relaxing, living life, not being criminals anymore. Merity's a little different because she's been doing more stuff over the last couple years. there was a bit where she's like saying how Ultir is involved, and I think that's just a mistranslation, saying like maybe when Ultir was involved. I don't really know. I'd have to double check on that, because I feel like it was more of something along those lines. And then just I thought it was funny that in the chapter, some of the facial expressions, I wonder in this chapter, I think it's just because maybe Wade is not used to drawing them. But like the Ultir one, Ultir just look like in the art, it looks like, because she's in one panel, it just looks like Ultir just looks like I'm fumbling over my words because I'm trying, like, looking at this Ultir panel, and just like the way that it looks, it's throwing me off a little bit. It looks like she just woke up. It looks like she just woke up and she's trying to take a picture, and Ultir is just like, I need to go back to sleep. This is too much for me. I think it's just, again, I think it's the art and some of these, just because Ueda is probably not used to drawing them. But I just don't really see like their plan here, because there's like a good, again, there's a nice moment where they're just kind of like talking back and forth, and like Racer specifically, when they're all kind of gathering for a moment, he's like, no, I don't want to. I want to be free. I don't want to do any of this. I want my freedom. My dog's trying to get out while I'm doing stuff. Excuse me, sir. He's also wants his freedom to go harass my cats. But he's just having a moment for each of them, and Midnight's like, well, Jalal and Merity are still fighting, as members of Crime Sorcery, and Fairy Tail's fighting too. Is it something that that we can do? Because they talk about like freedom is the will to keep fighting on, or to keep on fighting. And I like that Racer's just biting Bird and just going for whatever he can. And he's like mentioning how he doesn't want them people to be able to call themselves Arasion anymore, which I actually like that too. I think that's kind of neat for them, for characters, if like somebody's taking up a name of their own group and they're like, they take it more personally, and it's not so much as like, oh, we have to get involved because of this plot reason. It's more of like, we can't let this slide. Again, I like that. And then he got a named attack too. You get to use the Sonic Heaven, where he just does like a rush move. Maybe he's been hanging out with Jet. I think that would actually be a really cool character comrade thing, where maybe him and Jet are just chilling and racing all the time, and they have a good little buddy friendship. But I kind of don't think that Bird is defeated. I'm fine with it if he is, because Bird is the one that's like the least impressive. I'm actually happy if Racer gets some a win here, because you have to keep in mind, like if you told me like 10 chapters ago the one that was going to rally the SACE members together was going to be Racer, and Racer was going to have this really nice character moment, I wouldn't have believed you. I think it's really cool out of all of them in the flashback, not backstory, the flashback, while they're getting ready for this, and you could tell all of them are like, for the most part, kind of like I don't really know, but that are getting on board. But Racer's the one that's last, and up until like a moment where Midnight steps in, Racer's just like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be involved in this. I want to do my own thing. But then after, this is the kind of like final touchdown from Racer, he's able to, or from Midnight, Racer is able to kind of get on board and really see where they're standing at, and because of that, he's here. And I think that whole moment gave him a little bit more of a spirit jolt, and because of that, he's able to rally a little bit more than the other characters are. If Midnight, here's the thing, if Bird is defeated, I wouldn't really be bothered by it, because again, Bird isn't somebody that I had a lot of anticipation and hype for. I think it'd be cool for Racer. Plus, it's like if Racer and Cobra can get out of there, that'd be great. But Midnight, I just don't see Midnight beating Zero, man. That's like the hardest fight out of all of them, and Midnight's already used all his abilities. The thing about Zero is weird to have being brought back. If Zero is brought back and he's defeated in this, it has to be a way that is important to like revealing in the story, because it's like how when Blade was defeated, it was like it showed the book, and Cobra's not fighting the Athereous all the time. He knows about demons, but he doesn't really know the details of the Athereous. So seeing a book and being confused by this book that was decayed, I think it's something, again, that's noting on, these are artificial demons, these are made by Ferris, and the whole bit where he's like, death for them means returning to Ferris. That's some ominous foreshadowing we're probably going to be seeing as this next bit goes on. Like maybe as the we'll see some of the Ferris and Bestia fight, and once the point where Ferris is starting to lose, she'll reveal that like as the sex members are defeated, like she gets their power back and she's able to become more powerful in the process. One of those kind of reveals, kind of like how instead of Brain having the links to Seal Zero, she is using them to become more powerful and have these like pockets of extra energy and whatnot that she could use. As I think it'd be really cool if she brings Zero back, but it's like Zero was a way to eventually make her stronger, and so like it was just a minion that she is expendable in a way. My only hopes that if Zero is brought, Zero came back. If Zero is defeated, it needs to be followed up in a way that again shows like why he was the first, because if he was there and then it's like brought back like another flesh Athereous, we have Zenkro or we have Hades, something that like I would love it. Oh my god, I would love it so much if like before Hades, because Hades would be the one that you'd want as your ultimate, like this is my ultimate Athereous made from a person. Please bring Gienma back for one more round. I've been wanting this for years. I would love him to come back for one more round where they defeat him. I think it'd be awesome if he comes back kind of like as this boss character where he's just a mindless giant monster where maybe he's like 5 times bigger than what he was before. And it's just all of the members of Sabretooth are gang fighting him and it's like a raid boss. And he doesn't have any real dialogue. It's just, all the Sabretooth members are in a combo fight. I think it'd be great because it's like you could take all of them in there and you can give like small moments still, Yukino or Orga or Rufus. Give them some cool moments, but just have them in a whole bit. But I just bring Gienma back for one last like. I think it's hilarious if I think it's funny he was brought back once. I love the idea of a returning thing where he comes back for one more time and he's just like this time, and Sabretooth's just all together this time. They're all squatted up and they're like, listen, okay, one more time, let's just get it over with. We're gonna burn your bones this time to salt the corpse. But in some way that if Zero is defeated, it's to show that Ferris is like, I've got more of these, I've been collecting bodies. And again, if she brings out Hades' corpse and brings Hades into a full demon form, I think that would be really, really cool. I think that would be a great way to round out the whole bit about obviously him being the strongest. Because here's real fast, if you look at each of the dark guild masters, because of Mard Gears technically not, but you look at each of them, Hades and Grimoire Heart at their peak were said to be the strongest. I think that Tartaros was stronger ultimately, because it's like if you look at I think Hades would have gotten his heart destroyed against Mard Gear, but it's like if him with the demon boost, because Mard Gear was already a demon, he was already an Athereous demon, which was unfair for him in terms of where they're from. It's 2 humans and an Athereous. But it's like if you look at Zero, where Zero's at now, clearly Zero as an Athereous is stronger than Mard Gear, so Hades as an Athereous should be way stronger than Zero. And bringing him back when we know from Franmont that he was the closest to being a demon that a human could be, I think that would be a really nice round out for him and his character and everything in that. So we'll see exactly what Ferris does with that whole bit with Zero in the next chapter or so. Because I would love it if, personally, this is what I want. I'll probably do like a video prediction, so I can bring those back. Also, it looks like, I didn't even notice this, that when Blade died, he like made a tiny explosion. It doesn't look like it was dangerous, but maybe just like a little light bomb. But I want Bird to lose for Racer, so Racer can get Cobra the hell out of there. But I think Midnight is gonna lose, and if Midnight wins, then I think we have to have something for Ferris shortly after, because I love Zero. The only thing would would be like to bring Zero back and to have him not really get to do anything in the long run other than just kind of be fun, like be a fun villain for a short period of time. Like I think that the idea that him dying and then immediately going into how like this could be worse with Hades or Zenkro or whoever, other characters made Athereous. But I think it'd be great to see like him get the full extent of it first, especially with like, again, if we see all of the different Athereous and they're all just doing their things and they're all defeated, then it's like, okay, this problem solved, sort of. But then Ferris goes back to her base and there's just walls of Athereous books. I think that'd be an instant turnaround, because it would show, yeah, these guys were strong, but they weren't unbeatable. but she can just keep making more. That's the thing about the Athereous versus, you know, just having a squad, because the squad you have to find specific members, you have to cultivate their strength. You know, the idea of like Fire and Flames, like he found all these people and then he had to dragon buff them. Ferris doesn't have to go through all that. She just has to, you know, create them from nothing. So we'll see as this next couple chapters progress. This was a really nice character bit. Cobra's went about how I expected him to win, but also I really liked the fact that we had the follow-up of the book. Very happy about that in this chapter. And then just nice character moments from them in their flashbacks and from Racer. If Midnight beat Zero, I'll be shocked. But also, two things, like I said. One is, let me get my fingers in. Two things. One is, like I said, has to be some form of value as, okay, well, why did Zero get brought back if he was going to lose in this bit? Okay, well, it's to show that she's been working on other Athereous from dead people, and Zero was just one of them. He was just the first one that she finished and brought out. And two, Midnight, if you are able to beat Zero, you are obligated to stay and fight for the things that are going to further progress in this arc. I better not see your ass go home. I do not want Midnight to be shown capable of beating Athereous Zero. Because again, here's the thing. Cobra is somebody that we've already known, like the level of capability. We know that, well, like we know things that like the ether nano in the world is naturally more potent. So like it makes sense that there are stronger wizards generally as time goes on, because the base level of magic in the world is getting stronger. And Midnight is already somebody that was a special case out of a selected like cream of the crop kids from the Tower of Heaven. So it's not like Midnight doesn't have built-in structured hype in the lore and in the story. But if Midnight shows that level of skill, I better not see his ass go home and just go chill and hang out. Like, listen, I don't give a shit if your nails are broken. I need you to be in this fight, because there's going to be someone that needs your help at some point soon. And Ferris isn't done. Even if you take out our Athereous in this fight, Ferris is not done. Ferris, I guarantee you, Ferris will spawn more Athereous the second that she's free and not in a fight. She's probably going to spawn some in her fight with Bestia, but we'll see. Other than that, comment below, tell me your thoughts about this chapter, and like, do you think Zero's gonna lose? Like, where do you think some of this stuff is gonna go through? Because I just have a feeling we're getting close into how all this is going to lead into Ferris build and Ferris hype, with that whole bit about how their death only leads back to Ferris and only means returning to Ferris. So we'll see. Other than that, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.